to Scum Villain and the channel in general. Sorry for disappearing over the weekend. I was quite sick. It was no fun, but I am now back and feeling better and ready to continue our journey into Scum Villain's self-saving system. Hello, Delvin, Lobsol, Jeff. Thanks for joining us. I've also finally, since I changed my desk, been able to arrange where the background's going to be things related to Scum Villain and such. That's a neat little plaque of Shen Qing Chu right here. I love this thing. It's so pretty. It looks like it pops out. I got a couple other things. I got not a lot of Scum Villain because it's just kind of gotten really big, but I have some. I have a Luo Binghe keychain. He's so cute and angry. Well, not angry, I guess. Only if you are mean to his Shizun. Thanks for joining us, and we're going to get started. Quick update on scheduling. Scheduling from now on, streams will be every day at 1 p.m. I'm going to stop doing 2 a day for a little while. We're going to have book reading Monday, game Tuesday, book reading, game, and the streams themselves will be a little long, but they won't be 2 a day. Sorry if that's inconvenient for anyone, but I think I've been overworking myself, 1. And 2, I have a lot of big projects I'm working on, so I kind of need the free time. Don't leave, Gandhi, no! You're just... okay. He just climbed over the camera, so you got a great look at his underside. But, okay, buddy. He's now... yeah, you can see the ear. You say hi? Okay. Alright, well, he messed up this. Let me grab that. And we will start with chapter 34. Like an Evil Beast. Oh shit! He's here! Dun dun dun! Let me go ahead and play our music here. I almost forgot with all the other details. What happened last time? So Shen Qingchu, our hero, is investigating a mystery of a plague in this city, Jinlan City, I believe it is. He and his buddies, Liu Qingge, the violent guy, and Mu Qingfang, the doctor, have gone to investigate. They've discovered there's a demon that causes human flesh to go away, and they are trying to stop those demons. While investigating, they came across Luo Binghe with the group from Huanhua Palace, which is another group of cultivators, another group of them, who do not like Shen Qingchu because they know he was mean to Luo Binghe. So that's what happened last time. Our erstwhile hero returned 2 years early, or was it 3 years early? And Shen Qingchu was quite upset about that. But at the very end of the last chapter, Luo Binghe showed up in his bedroom, and this is Shen Qingchu reacting to Luo Binghe appearing once again. Oh shit! He's here! In an instant, it was as if Shen Qingchu's brains had started boiling, catching fire with a whoosh. Fuck, the ring was playing out right before his eyes. He grabbed his fan, and with a nimble flip, leapt out the window. I love that he grabs his fan. I'm running for my life, but I need my fan. He'd finally torn down that goosebump-raising mask he'd been wearing in the daytime, and exposing his true nature had come to make him pay. Running away was an entirely subconscious urge. The habit of playing cool he'd formed after so many years allowed him to persevere, so that even while fleeing, his movements were easy and graceful. He landed solidly on the ground and with a tap of his foot darted away like a flying bird. Luo Binghe's clear and bright voice pierced far through the air, reaching his ears while carrying a hint of cold, drifting laughter. During the day, Shizun was so intimate and gentle with Gong Yizhao, and this evening you lit a lantern waiting for Liu Shishu until late in the night. What sincere affection! Why then are you so distant when it comes to this disciple? Fuck, it feels like he's cutting the distance in half with every sentence. This speed is unscientific. Shen Qingchu drew in a deep breath, thinking that no matter what happens, he should find himself some backup first, and shouted from the pit of his stomach, Liu Qingge! Luo Binghe's voice grew even closer. This time it was no longer as gentle, but rather came with a cold laugh. Liu Shishu is currently fighting. I'm afraid he won't have the leisure to come. Shizun, if you have orders, why not say them to me? I wouldn't dare! How does this guy not realize, that that he's just jealous? It's so obvious. He's seeing in his head the Luo Binghe from the book that's coming for revenge. No, he's just jealous that you're hanging out with other people. Shen Qingchu knew Luo Binghe must have used some method to delay Liu Qingge. His assistance couldn't be relied on. Immediately, he poured his entire body's spiritual energy downwards, hoping to boost his speed. But he just had to forget, right now he was in the middle of Without a Cure's flare-up. When he realized, it was already too late. In an instant, it was like all the blood in Shen Qingchu's body had solidified, and his whole body suddenly felt heavy. Going to move the cat cam back in front of the cat. Hello, cat. In the next moment, a hand suddenly clutched his throat, and his back crashed heavily into a cold, solid rock wall, the pain resonating from his flesh into his spine, his head buzzing. Luo Binghe was already within arm's reach. He'd slammed Shen Qingchu into the wall with one hand. The back of his head rang with the crash, swooning. It took a while before he could refocus his gaze. Under the streaming moonlight, Luo Binghe looked even more as if his silhouette was carved from ice and jade, peerlessly beautiful. He pressed very close and spoke slowly and deliberately. After so many years of separation, we meet amidst golden wind and jade dew. Yet Shizun incessantly calls someone else's name. This disciple is truly a bit hurt. Let's see, there's a footnote. This meeting amidst the fall wind with our feet on white dew is better than countless meetings in the mortal world. It's from a poem, which describes the annual meeting of the cowherd and the weaver girl during Qixi. Qixi. Yes, that's how it's said. It's a festival. I think it's when the two stars in the sky, Alderaan and another one. Is it Alderaan? I think that's not from science. I think that's from sci-fi. But anyway, there's a festival every year where these two stars meet in the sky that's connected to a fancy old mythological story. And a line from that poem is what Luo Binghe just said about we meet in, he's quoting a romantic poem, and Shizun still doesn't get what he really thinks, my lord. Oh, this idiot. I love it. Let's see here. Go back where I was. He says he's hurt and broken-hearted, but there's a smile on his lips and bloodlust in his eyes. Any way you look at it, he's lying through his teeth. Shen Qingchu felt as if his neck was caught in an iron hoop. His throat bobbed with difficulty, and it was hard to breathe, let alone speak. He could still manage to form a sword seal with his fingers, but his spiritual energy circulation was sluggish, so it was no point anyhow. No matter how perfect a seal he formed, he couldn't move Shu Ya. And Luo Binghe was pressing harder and harder, his grip slowly tightening. Suddenly, there was a flash before Shen Qingchu's eyes, and a giant dialogue box popped up. This dialogue box was entirely different from before. Before, they'd all looked like Windows XP error boxes. Now it was subdued, lavish, and sophisticated. The main point was the content. System reminder. Accept a system tip to resolve the small complication our valued customer is facing. You call this a small complication? Shen Qingchu mentally shouted himself hoarse. Alright, is there still an easy mode? Easy mode, please! Access privileges activated. Use key prop to maintain state of living. Shen Qingchu's eyes were nearly about to go green from suffocation. There's a key prop? How many B points to buy it? Tell me! Prop is already in your inventory. Use fake Jade Guanin to consume 100 of Luo Binghe's anger points. Oh shit! The only thing Luo Binghe's adoptive mother left him, the fake Jade Guanyin. Right after arriving in this world, he'd acquired this life-saving prop, high-tier equipment. How had he forgotten? He still had this golden food bowl tucked away in his bosom. System, you finally gave a good reminder. For those who don't remember, the Jade Guanyin is a green pendant of a goddess, and In the very early chapters, those bullies attacked him and it was lost, and Shen Qingqiu found it and hung on to it. Shen Qingqiu said, I will! His throat was about to be squeezed into two. Please note, this prop is single use and can consume a maximum of 5,000 of Luo Binghei's anger points. Shen Qingqiu just managed to yank on the reins. Stop! This was Luo Binghei at 100 anger points? Are you messing with me? If he's already so crazed and violent at 100, how beautiful would the scene of him at 5,000 anger points be? He dared not imagine. The main point was to use a prop that could remove 5,000 points on a situation that was only 100, and to lose the chance to ever use it again, even if it was a matter of life and death. Shen Qingqiu needed some time to agonize and struggle. If things went on like this, it was either death from suffocation or his throat being pulverized. Just when Shen Qingqiu made up his mind, prepared to clench his teeth and use the life-saving prop, the hand around his neck suddenly loosened. There was no way he could get away even if he tried to run, so he could only continue playing cool. Shen Qingqiu propped himself up on the wall, barely managing to stand upright and not plop his knees on the spot. Luo Binghei had almost choked him to death, and now he was coming over to help him, all smiles, just like when he helped him off the carriages or brought him snacks in the past. Shen Qingqiu actually forgot to struggle, only feeling that this behavior was making his hair stand on end. Luo Binghei sighed. Why did Shizun run so fast? This disciple almost couldn't catch up. Bullshit! Who'd been chasing him in a game of cat and mouse for such a long time, entirely unruffled, with his breathing completely even? Shen Qingqiu panted, then slowly opened his mouth, his voice a bit hoarse. You have quite the nerve. Returning in such a grandiose fashion, aren't you afraid someone will discover your true identity? Luo Binghei's eyes flashed and he said, Is Shizun concerned or worried? Shen Qingqiu thought this was an interesting reply. In these circumstances, was there any difference between concerned and worried? He couldn't resist asking, Unless you think I won't tell anyone. Luo Binghei looked at him, then said pityingly, Shizun, that would require someone to believe you. Shen Qingqiu's heart thumped. So this meant he was planning to, just like in the original work, utterly destroy his reputation, then slowly, step by step, force him on the road to ruin and toy with him slowly until he died. The original Shen Qingqiu had two major scum points. One, attempting to get a taste of the many young ladies and married women, and two, murdering many comrades and others. But Shen Qingqiu, after taking this shell, had definitely not inherited these interests and ambitions from the original. Could Luo Binghei still destroy his prestigious reputation and place in society? System replied, Friendly reminder, of course. Shen Qingqiu said, Shut up, okay? You don't need to remind me of this fact, thanks. You're welcome. No B points will be taken for this explanation. Shen Qingqiu directly X'd out of the dialogue box that had popped up. He rubbed his throat and stood for a while, then realized Luo Binghei was actually still staring at him, with no intention of attacking again. Still looking. He wouldn't be trying to make up for lost time after being separated for years, would he? System said, Protagonist satisfaction points, plus 50. Shen Qingqiu said to it, You've had an upgrade. Why are you omitting the reason for the point increase? Don't accuse me of farming points later. I didn't even do anything. Where are the satisfaction points coming from? Also, can you stop appearing for a bit? Why are the satisfaction points appearing? Perhaps it's because he's finally getting to see his Shizun. And I him. Where'd my water go? Oh goodness. Oh, here it is. It was behind Gandalf's butt. After a while, Shen Qingqiu asked, What are you planning to do with your return? Luo Binghei replied, I was merely reminiscing about how Shizun had treated me well and wanted to return to see you. Shen Qingqiu automatically understood this as him coming back to settle old debts. He traded a question and answer with Luo Binghei. This could actually be considered harmonious, so Shen Qingqiu grew a bit braver. Without a change in expression, he moved his hand to his sword hilt. Just to kill me? What about the plague in Jinlan City? Has every citizen of this city treated you well? Who knew that as soon as these words came out of his mouth, They must have touched some sore point of Luo Binghei's. It was like within his eyes a cold star had fallen, and the faint hint of a smile on his face disappeared without a trace. Luo Binghei said mockingly, "Shizun truly holds a relentless hatred towards the demon race." There was a hint of forcibly suppressed anger in his voice. "No, I don't really." Luo Binghei clenched his teeth. "No, I should say, a relentless hatred towards me." See, he does understand. Wait, what? When Shen Qingchu was speechless, he'd never said that. Luo Binghei took a sudden step towards him. Shen Qingchu's expression quickly became cautious and he retreated a step, but behind his back was a wall, so there was nowhere to retreat. Their gazes collided in midair. Then Luo Binghei suddenly seemed to realize he was too agitated and closed his eyes, only opening them again after a few moments had passed. "So Shizun truly thinks that I would kill, burn, slaughter cities, and topple countries sooner or later, just because of half of my lineage?" Shen Qingchu could only keep his silence. If he had a paper copy of Proud Immortal Demon Way at hand, he would have already slapped it onto his face. "If you have a hammer, use it." The latter part of that 20 million epic was full of hammers he wanted. Not only kill, burn, slaughter cities, and topple countries, using not a dog or fowl was spared to describe the things Luo Binghei had done had already lost its dramatic effect. Shen Qingchu looked down without a single word. Luo Binghei took it as tacit agreement and sneered while saying, "Then why would you tell me not to put too much weight on race? That no one is intolerable to the heavens? Such pompous words like these." His face suddenly grew dark, malice overflowing from between his brows, and then he abruptly struck and yelled, "Hypocrite!" Shen Qingchu was long prepared. At this moment he quickly retreated and just managed to dodge. He turned his head and saw the wall he'd been leaning against had been pulverized. Though he'd long known, after coming back from a place like the Endless Abyss, Luo Binghei's temperament would change, he never thought he would take such an extreme 180. Moody didn't begin to describe it. Knowing the novel's conclusion ahead of time was one thing, but seeing a once familiar person turn into this was another thing entirely, especially because this result had been basically single-handedly created by him. It seemed like Luo Binghei had never really intended to hit him. After venting his anger with the attack, he calmed down a bit, tilted his head, and reached out, seemingly to grab him. Shen Qingchu quickly drew Shuya. It had been a long time since he'd drawn his sword by hand. Most of the time he'd summoned it with a sword seal. But now that he'd had no spiritual energy, he could only do it manually. There was nothing to be done. He couldn't offer himself up for capture. At least in this moment, he definitely could not sit still and await death. This was a truly gargantuan blunder. He'd thought Luo Binghei would train for the full 5 years before he crawled out from the Endless Abyss. Who knew he would activate his cheats even more and speed up the process by half? And calculating the days, the Sun Moon Dew mushroom he'd been growing as his life-saving trump card had not yet grown to the point where it could be used. Seeing this, Luo Binghei slowly raised a hand, letting Shen Qingchu see the violet-black demonic energy roiling in his palm, and said slowly, "Shizun, take a guess. If I grab Shu Ya, how many strikes will it take before it's corroded through?" "No need to guess. I'll bet 50 cents on one strike at most." Shen Qingchu felt even more miserable. They really do need to talk. They're talking around each other, but that's the point of the story. He's seeing the character, not the person that he knows. And of course, Luo Binghei is not in a good place mentally after, 2.5 years of demon torture. He's not all there yet, but he'll get there. He is kind of going through late-stage demon puberty. Luo Binghei took another step closer, and Shen Qingchu could only raise his sword to take the attack. He'd already mentally prepared for Shu Ya to be destroyed, but suddenly, like Luo Binghei had seen something, he stared, then quickly withdrew the demon energy in his hand, grabbing the tip of the sword with his bare hand. Shen Qingchu didn't think he would actually cut him. This was already the second time. In this moment of shock, Luo Binghei had already chopped down on his wrist. Shen Qingchu's hand loosened in pain and his sword fell, then was sent flying with a single finger by Luo Binghei. Luo Binghe clamped down on Shen Qingchu's wrist with a single hand, fresh blood flowing from his palm, soaking Shen Qingchu's sleeve. The blood kept flowing, and he started to panic and worry for no reason. While he was still in the midst of confusion, Luo Binghe flipped his hand over. "You were infected?" Some small red patches were scattered across the back of Shen Qingchu's hand, a few more than there had been during the day. Luo Binghe's slender fingers flitted across it in a barely there touch, and the red patches disappeared under his fingertips like ink dropped in water. As expected, a little thing like this was no threat to Luo Binghe. Luo Binghe seemed to have moderated his expression. He said, "This hand of Shizun's is plagued with misfortunes." They'd both thought the same thing. Looking at the spotless hand, Shen Qingchu even more could not understand the course of Luo Binghe's thoughts. Looking at it so far, perhaps this hand had brought up old affections. Thinking about it, this was the hand which had blocked the poisoned armor spikes. Perhaps it had brought up some old memories. Just as he was thinking this, a fist suddenly slammed into his stomach. Luo Binghe smiled and said, "An eye for an eye. Since Shizun sowed the seeds, you should reap the bitter fruit yourself. Shizun should make up for the wounds he gave me." Shen Qingchu thought he was using a relatively comparable method to vent his anger for the wound that he had left on his heart years ago, but with a sudden pain on his scalp, his neck was dragged upright, and Luo Binghe pressed his hand to his lips, the taste of blood flowing into his mouth. Dun dun dun! Shen Qingchu suddenly opened his eyes wide. He finally realized the wound Luo Binghe was talking about was the one he'd left on his hand with Shu Ya. Motherfucker! Can't drink it, absolutely can't drink it! He furiously slapped away the hand and bent over to retch up the mouthful of blood he'd swallowed, but Luo Binghe dragged him back up and continued to pour blood into his mouth. Luo Binghe tore open the wound on his hand. Hot blood flowed endlessly, yet he seemed even happier. "Shizun, don't throw it up. Even though a heavenly demon's blood is dirty, you won't necessarily die if you drink it, right?" "You wouldn't die, but the fate is worse than death!" Dun dun dun! Hello and welcome, new folks hopping in. We have just finished, what was this, chapter 34? He's forcing Shen Qingchu to drink his blood. We'll see what happens next. Shen Qingchu didn't know how he made it back to Jinzi Weapon Shop. Even after climbing the stairs and entering his room, he was still muddled and fell straight on the bed. He could only feel his brain, stomach, and blood churning and tossing, and that there were things crawling along inside them back and forth. He relentlessly tossed and turned the entire night. The blood of ancient heavenly demons. After it left their body, it could be controlled by members of that lineage. If someone drank it, death was indeed not the only possible consequence. Even worse, there were many possibilities. For example, in the original work, after Luo Binghe mastered control over his blood, it was used for a wide range of purposes, including poison, blood-based insects inside the target's body, a location tracker, a brainwashing tool, a sex tool, etc. Soaked in cold sweat, Shen Qingchu drifted between awake and asleep, and only fell into a deep sleep at daybreak. He hadn't slept for long when a wave of earth-shaking cheers jolted him awake. He staggered off the bed. Since last night he'd gone to bed fully clothed, he didn't need to dress. Just as he was about to open the door, it suddenly flew open itself, and in burst a bouncing, lively youth. Yang Yishuan said, agitated, "The gates are open! The gates are open!" Shen Qingchu replied, "What?" Yang Yishuan shouted, "Those red monsters were all captured, so the gates are open! Jinlan City's finally made it out!" At the thought of his father's death, his eyes filled with tears. Shen Qingchu's entire body felt awful, and his head hurt like it was splitting open, but he still wanted to comfort him and thought, this fast? They were all captured within one night? The gates were already open, so the cultivators from various sects that had been watching from outside all entered the city, and were gathered in a wide-open plaza. Mu Qingfang was also there, providing medicinal pills he'd prepared. Jinlan City, which had just been lifeless a few days ago, was now brimming with joy. Altogether, 7 sowers had been captured alive, and all of them were isolated inside Xiaohua Temple's barrier. Shen Qingchu saw Liu Qingge looking pensive. He went up and patted his shoulder. What happened last night? Liu Qingge threw him a look, then replied with a question. What happened with your disciple? Shen Qingchu asked, what did he do? Liu Qingge slowly said, last night he caught 5, I caught 2. He stared at Shen Qingchu. Exactly what happened during the years Luo Binghe was missing. To be able to steal kills from right beneath the master of Baizan Peak's nose, and even worse, to beat him in kill count, was devastating to the values passed down in Baizan Peak, and basically a great shame and humiliation. And we can talk about those numbers. If we're talking power levels, currently Luo Binghe to Luo Qingge is about 5-2. Suddenly, the nearby disciples all moderated their noise, moved to make a path, clearing out space. From not far off, the leaders of several sects steadily walked towards them. Yue Qingyuan and Huanhua Palace's old palace master walked side by side, followed closely by Tianyi Monastery and Xiaohua Temple. Luo Binghe stood right next to the old palace master. Within the first rays of the early morning sun illuminating him, Luo Binghe looked invigorated, glowing with life. When Shen Qingchu compared him to himself, he suddenly became depressed. Even Yue Qingyuan, when he walked close, looked at him for a while and said worriedly, your complexion is far too poor. As expected, I shouldn't have let you come. Shen Qingchu gave a hollow smile. Only because last night Mu Shidi's patients were wailing and howling, so I couldn't sleep well. Mu Qingfeng had finished distributing the medicine. On returning, he also started. Shishong, no matter how much noise we made, it wouldn't turn you into this after only a night. Did you take the medicine I left in your room? Shen Qingchu rushed to say, I took it. Please, do not ask if he'd taken his medicine today ever again. A clamor suddenly came from the side. Shen Qingchu turned to look and immediately wanted to drop his forehead into his hands. There was a middle-aged man in mourning clothes leading a large group of men and women, insisting on kneeling before Luo Binghe. It was Jinlan City's governor. He was beside himself with emotion. Our small town was saved through the lives of many cultivators. This kindness can never be repaid. If in the future you have orders for us, we will fulfill them no matter the cost. The corners of Shen Qingchu's mouth twitched. What a standard plot development. After clearing out monsters, it was time to collect followers and rewards, and at this time it would always be the protagonist alone who steals the spotlight. Anyone else who put in effort would be treated as part of the backdrop. Leaving himself aside, Liu Qingge had caught 2, and Mu Qingfeng had been there distributing the medicine. Luo Binghe's response was also very standard. He humbly said, Please, rise, Governor. That Jinlan City could safely make it through this calamity was the result of many sects working together to support each other. It would be difficult for a single person's efforts to accomplish such. His words and manner were sincere and appropriate. He didn't damage his own glory, but with this, the other sects were also placated. The governor once more burst into praise. Last night I saw with my own eyes this young man single-handedly subduing these wicked things, such outstanding cultivation. As expected, heroes emerge young and famed masters raise outstanding disciples. Palace Master, your sect's succession is in good hands. Ouch. Not his teacher. Upon hearing the words, famed masters raise outstanding disciples, Luo Binghe's smile deepened, and his gaze, intentionally or not, flitted over, landing briefly on Shen Qingchu's face, like a dragonfly touching water. Shen Qingchu spread his fan to avoid it. The old palace master's gaze on Luo Binghe was filled with praise and parental affection. Others might not be able to tell, but Shen Qingchu could tell very well. This was the gaze of one looking at the successor and son-in-law he was proud of. Those 7 sowers that were trapped together squatted and shouted, scattering and agitating the people. Someone said, How should these vile things be dealt with? Yu Qingyuan said, Shidi, any thoughts? Shen Qingchu muttered to himself. Qingchu has seen related records in old texts that sowers fear high temperatures. It appears that only by burning them in a raging fire can we remove their body's infectious ability of decay. This was very easy to understand. Sterilization required high temperatures. A cultivator said, shocked, How could this work? With this kind of method, wouldn't we be as barbaric and cruel as the demon race? His voice was quickly drowned out by the enraged shouts of Jinlan City's survivors around them. During the days the plague had gone unchecked, the city had already lost countless innocent lives. Their entire bodies festered in death, too horrible for words. A perfectly fine and flourishing merchant city had become the horrific sight it was today. At this time, anyone expressing sympathy or advocating for humanism towards the sowers would become an enemy of the entire city. Those couple of cultivators were quickly found and surrounded by roars of "burn them" and "burn anyone who objects." Of the 7 sowers within the barrier, most of them bared their teeth, cackling with loud laughter and showing no signs of weakness. Shen Qingchu supposed they probably thought themselves heroes who'd created a bumper crop for their race. Only a single sower, the most petite of the group, was weeping miserably. Seeing it, the sympathy of some started to overflow. Qin Wanyu bit her lip, then approached Luo Binghe and said, "Luo Shishong, the frail one looks so pitiful." They look so pitiful. No matter how pitiful, were they as pitiful as those who'd been pointlessly infected by the plague, whose bodies had festered and died? Luo Binghe smiled at her but did not answer. In Shen Qingchu's eyes, as a reaction to the girl, this was really too perfunctory and should be considered unsatisfactory. Following the original work, at this time, shouldn't Binghe take the chance to express his agreement with warm and gentle words? How come Luo Binghe's training had increased, but his skill in picking up girls had decreased? But what could be done when Luo Binghe had a face that, no matter the angle or expression, was always as gentle as jade, assured and elegant? Qin Wanyu was momentarily dazzled and flung the words she'd said to the back of her mind, satisfied to continue watching from the sidelines. At this moment, something out of his expectations happened. The petite sower threw itself over, slamming into the edge of the barrier with a thump. Its scarlet face appeared even more sinister due to its wailing and bawling, and shouted, "Immortal Master Shen, you must not let them burn me to death! I'm begging you, Immortal Master Shen, please save me!" In an instant, Shen Qingchu felt like some string in his brain had snapped. Who the fuck are you? Randomly throwing yourself over and calling for Immortal Master Shen? I don't know you, okay? From all over the plaza, thousands of eyes immediately landed on Shen Qingchu. The sower continued to wail. "We were only following your orders. It was never said we'd be burned." What the fuck? This kind of ridiculous development, this simple, crude accusation. Shen Qingchu felt like he was drunk. What made him feel more drunk was the old palace master saying, "Shouldn't Immortal Master Shen come up with an explanation for what this thing said?" Such a low-level trick, and someone still believed it? Immediately, someone else echoed, "Yes, an explanation should be given." And it wasn't one person. The 12 peaks would rally together against outsiders. As soon as these words were spoken, quite a few of Kangshong Mountain's cultivators revealed expressions of displeasure. Yu Qingyuan was even more direct. His face became cold. Qi Qingqi said scornfully, "Anyone with eyes should be able to tell this thing is unhappy about its impending death and wants someone to share its fate, and it framed him. All demonic evildoers are the same, yet there are still people taking the bait. Said like this, it's too laughable." The old palace master lightly said, "Then why doesn't it frame others, instead only framing Immortal Master Shen? This point is worth considering as well." Shen Qingchu was completely defeated by this logic. According to this, for anyone being singled out and accused, the question of their innocence was worth considering. The cost of framing someone was too low. Luo Binghe spoke not a single word and stared with rapt attention. Perhaps it was only Shen Qingchu's imagination, but he kept feeling that those pitch-black, star-like eyes were full of smiles. In the original work, what made Shen Qingchu unpardonably loathed was the slaughter of his own sect sibling. He'd personally killed Liu Qingge, but now Liu Qingge was standing next to him. If someone tried to punch him, Liu Qingge might even help him. This charge absolutely wouldn't hold water. Could it be that since there weren't enough stains, he would be smeared until there were? With Luo Binghe's character post-blackening, it wouldn't be impossible. Suddenly, a Huanhua Palace disciple stepped out, his face scattered with a few pockmarks. This was the disciple who'd ridiculed Shen Qingchu in the abandoned building that day. He bowed and said, "Palace Master, this disciple has discovered something and isn't sure if it's appropriate to say." Shen Qingchu said expressionlessly, If you have something to say, then speak. Since you've already opened your mouth, why even say you're not sure if it's appropriate? How hypocritical. Wasn't this slapping your own face? That disciple hadn't thought a senior would scold him. His face switched between red and white, and even the pockmarks changed color alongside. But he didn't dare snap back and only viciously glared at Shen Qingqiu. Yesterday, this disciple and several sect siblings realized there were a few infected red patches on Senior Shen's arm. We saw them clearly, but looking today, those patches have disappeared. Kangchong Mountain Sect Senior Mu himself said the pills he provided were created on the spot and needed 24 hours to take effect. It's even possible they won't be effective. Luo Shishong took the cure in front of us and the red patches on his hand have yet to fade. Why did only Senior Shen recover so quickly? His red patches fade completely. No matter the reason, this disciple thinks the point is very suspicious. Shen Qingqiu sighed internally. He'd just known that Luo Binghe wouldn't remove the seeds of decay out of kindness. Yuo Qingwan said steadily, My Shidi oversees Qingjing Peak. As a Peak Lord, he has always been a model within the sect. His moral character is noble and unsullied. This entire sect both knows and understands. For everyone to believe such nonsense so easily, you're far too susceptible to provocation. Shen Qingqiu's face was going to turn red. Shishong, don't do this. Are you for real? If you're suppressing your conscience to say this to protect me, I'll feel awful. No matter if it's the original or current goods, I reckon neither of us can touch the edges of noble and unsullied moral character. Well, no, the original goods can touch the last word. The old palace master said, That's so. That's different from what I've heard. Shen Qingqiu's heart sank. It looked like today he would absolutely be dragged into the mud. Dun dun dun. So, we've come to the dark side where the fall of his character has begun. But it seems to be playing out differently than it did originally because he wasn't as evil as the original.
Oh my goodness, Gandhi, you be so cute. Being so cute.
You know why he's right here? I have a heater in my room now because it's very, very cold, and it's his new favorite thing. He loves it. He says it's nice and warm. He like warms. Chapter 36, False Accusations, Part 2. Shen Qingqiu narrowed his eyes and said, Since when did hearsay from other sects become the basis for conclusions on the moral character of our Kangchong Mountain's Qingjing Peak disciples? The old palace master said, If it was only hearsay, of course we would not trust it so easily. But this information came from one of your esteemed sect's very own members. He looked around him, then continued, Everyone must know that it is common for each sect's disciples to form friendships with each other, so hearing some rumors and gossip is inevitable. However, the matter of Peak Lord Shen abusing and grievously harming the disciples under his care deliberately renders him unworthy of the phrase noble and unsullied moral character. Shen Qingqiu's head was going to swell. Grievously harming disciples under his care? This one was true. Just during Luo Binghe's development period, Shen Qingqiu had mistreated him in every possible way. Those glorious times when he'd been used as child labor alone were enough to write a tragic novel of suffering. The number of other disciples Shen Qingqiu had harassed or driven out because of their talent was also enough to form a gymnastics team. It was just, the one who'd grievously harmed them wasn't him! It was the original goods! Yu Qingyuan said solemnly, Since you are aware they are only rumors and gossip, you must be aware they do not merit discussion. It's true that my Shidi usually doesn't pamper his disciples, but to accuse him of grievous harm is too much. Suddenly a soft, sweet voice spoke. Qin Wanyu finally couldn't take it. She had to speak up for her beloved. Then may this woman ask sect leader Yue, would ordering a youth in his teens to face a demonic elder with hundreds of years of training, who was wearing armor covered in poison spikes in battle, not count as persecution and grievous harm? This time, Shen Qingqiu couldn't just chill on the sidelines and not listen anymore. Neither harsh nor mild, he said, Whether it counts or not, I do not know. But what I do know is that a case where a Shizun stood before a suit of poisoned armor, pushed aside his disciple, and shielded him with his own body probably can't count as persecution. What do you think, Luo Binghe? Of all the cultivators present, some looked astonished to hear the name. Many of them were from Kangshong Mountain sect. Some had only been suspicious when they'd seen the face, such as Chi Ching-chi, who was now frozen in shock. As for a certain member of the logistics team who'd nearly fallen to his knees on the spot upon entering Jinlan City and coming face to face with Luo Binghe, after his heart underwent a bout of torrential rain and wind, he'd actually become calm and unperturbed instead. Because Shen Qingchu had often punished Luo Binghe in the past, Yu Qingyuan had also seen him a few times, but that was only when Luo Binghe was still young. Afterwards, Shen Qingchu began to elevate Luo Binghe, and so would often send him away from Qingjing Peak to handle all sorts of tasks, which made it harder to meet him. At the Immortal Alliance conference, he'd seen Luo Binghe's face in the crystal mirror, but it was only for a brief moment, and the mirrors weren't very clear, so he hadn't recognized the shining, handsome young man at the Huanhua Palace Master's side was actually Shen Qingchu's beloved disciple from back then. Before this, Yu Qingyuan had heard the Palace Master's most highly regarded disciple was his first, so up until now he'd thought Luo Binghe was Gong Yi Zhao. When Shen Qingchu pointed it out at this time, he was stunned. From amid the crowd, Luo Binghe stared at Shen Qingchu, gaze unwavering. Shen Qingchu tilted his head and snapped open his fan and actually felt an urge to smile back, though it might have only looked like a taunting curl of his lips. It would be nonsense to say he wasn't mad at all. Shen Qingchu admittedly often worried about his own life and had a lot of opinions about Luo Binghe, but that time when he'd blocked a blow for Luo Binghe had been an instinctive reaction, though Luo Binghe may not have needed anyone's help to escape danger. No matter how he thought about it, he was the one who those 3 matches had screwed over the most, yet they were being used to smear him. Shen Qingchu was furious. Luo Binghe said slowly, "The kindness Shizun showed by protecting me with your own body, I will never forget." Chi Ching-chi said in disbelief, "It's really you! Shen Qingchu, didn't you say he died?" She looked at Luo Binghe again. "Since you're alive, why didn't you return to Qingjing Peak? Didn't you know because of you, your Shizun was—" Shen Qingchu suddenly burst into a fit of dry coughs, enough that Chi Ching-chi had to stop and stare at him. Shen Qingchu really wanted to bow to her and beg. He had a premonition that the words he'd hear next would definitely be beside himself. He never wanted to hear those words again. A wave of goosebumps hit him. If Luo Binghe had heard, he'd laugh hard enough to crack that perfect example of a male lead's face. The old palace master persisted. "It's exactly this that's so inexplicable. He clearly did not die, so why did you insist he did? And why was he not willing to return when he had the option to do so?" Shen Qingchu was sick of this bad faith tone of his. "If he wasn't willing to return, there's nothing I can do. He may come and go freely as he pleases. It's all up to him. If the palace master wishes to say something, say it outright." The old palace master smiled. "Peak Lord Shen knows what I wish to say, and anyone here with a clear mind can also understand. It's true these demonic sowers should be annihilated by fire, but if there was someone directing them behind the scenes, exacerbating the situation, we cannot let them go. No matter what, they must give an explanation to all of Jinlan City." With these words, he successfully stoked the flames of hatred of all the Jinlan City survivors present. Having just suffered a major calamity, they were already terrified and bitter, itching for a target to direct their anger at, and so quite a few people began to clamor. Luo Binghe said, "Shizun loathes evil. When it comes to demons, he only hates being denied the satisfaction of personally killing them, so how could he collude with them?" This appeared to be him speaking up for Shen Qingchu, but he was the only one present who could understand the true meaning that when it comes to demons, he only hates being denied the satisfaction of killing them. Having nothing to lose, Shen Qingchu cut straight to the point and asked, "Luo Binghe, right now, are you a disciple of Qingjing Peak or a member of Huanhua Palace?" The old palace master sneered. After all this, Peak Lord Shen is once again willing to recognize this disciple. Shen Qingchu said, "I never expelled him from my tutelage. Since he is still willing to call me Shizun, he must surely be willing to acknowledge me as such." He said these words purely with the intention of aggravating Luo Binghe, but it seemed he didn't succeed. Luo Binghe's gaze flickered, and perhaps it was an illusion, but he seemed as if his eyes had somewhat cleared. I wonder why. Oh, man. Within a moment, the crowd had split into 2 clear camps, sparks flying through the air, charged with the hostility of an imminent battle. As for the sowers who'd started the war, they were forgotten on the side. Everyone no longer cared about how to deal with them. Suddenly, there came a woman's sweet and charming voice. "Shen Jiu?" Are you Shenju? Upon hearing the name, Shen Qingqiu, placid and balmy countenance, nearly fissured into the Great Rift Valley. Fuck! Are the heavens determined to finish me today? He's done for. It's this woman. It's Chu Haitang. In the original work, when Chu Haitang appeared, it meant one thing: Shen Qingqiu's complete and utter fall from grace. Though Chu Haitang was no longer a girl in her prime, her face was still as fair as a magnolia flower, her makeup vibrant and beautiful. Along with her slender figure and full bosom, her looks were truly striking. Since her looks were striking, she naturally could not escape the fate of becoming a member of Luo Binghei's harem. The problem was, she'd once had an affair with Shen Qingqiu. Congratulations to have had a dubious relationship with two of a stallion novel's male leads. The original good Shen Qingqiu could be considered truly unparalleled. At least in all the stallion novels Shen Yuan had read, there was not a second to be found. As one could well imagine, this was the reason for the second massive flood of castrate Shen Qingqiu, castrate or we drop the novel comments in the review section. A raging barrage of fuck bombarded Shen Qingqiu's mind. Over there, Chu Haitang held her sword across her chest, as though if it came down to it, she would kill him, then slit her own throat. I'm asking you a question. Why do you not look at me? Big sis, how could I look at you? You're here for my life! An expression of touching sorrow filled Chu Haitang's face. So that's why. No wonder I searched for so many years, but still never saw you again. So you'd already flown to the summit and become the aloof and lofty master of Qingjing Peak. How splendid. Shen Qingqiu really didn't know where to look, or what to say. So he just stared straight ahead, doing his best to keep his expression indifferent and detached. Everyone was whispering among themselves. Yu Qingyuan said in a low voice, Qingqiu, this young lady, is truly your former acquaintance? Shen Qingqiu's heart flooded with tears. Shishang, don't ask anymore. Chu Haitang continued sorrowfully. Former acquaintance? Not only a former acquaintance, this man who looked so dignified. He and I were childhood sweethearts. I am his wife. Hearing this, Luo Binghei's eyebrow began to twitch madly. No, you're clearly Luo Binghei's wife. Wake up! Oh, Shen Qingqiu. He's not jealous of Chu Haitang. That's for sure. Shang Qinghua said in surprise, Is this really true? Why have I never heard Shen Shishang mention it before? Shen Qingqiu curled his lips at him, giving him a fake smile. Can you stop adding fuel to the fire? Who created this dog blood content for the purpose of jacking up his scum and hatefulness values, but you have the nerve to stand back and enjoy the show? And after all, aren't all of you cultivators? Why do you like to gossip so much? Go away! Go away! Get out! Chu Haitang sneered and said, He's a beast in human clothes, a degenerate wearing a cultured mask. Of course he wouldn't mention his shameful deeds. Master Wu Chen had interacted with the three from Kangshang Mountain for some time, and received Shen Qingqiu's care, so he had a favorable impression of him. Previously, when Kangshang Mountain Sect and Huanhua Palace had been arguing, he hadn't been able to interject, but he spoke now. Amitabha, if this benefactor has something to say, please explain it properly and completely. Blind accusations do not invite confidence. Shen Qingqiu wept to himself. Master, I know you're doing this for me, but if she explains it completely, I'll suffer more. What I'm truly worried about isn't having done shameful deeds, but the devil knocking on the wrong door. Just like that, Chu Haitang became the focus of everyone's attention. Face flushed red with emotion, she puffed out her chest and said loudly, What I, Chu Haitang, say from now on, if a single word is false, may my heart be pierced by 10,000 of the demon's poisonous arrows, undeserving of a peaceful death. She pointed straight at Shen Qingqiu, fury burning in her eyes. This person is now Kangshang Mountain Sect's Qingjing Peak's Peak Lord, Shen Qingqiu, the widely renowned Shuya sword, but no one knows the kind of thing he used to be. Her words were rather harsh, and Qi Qingqi's shapely brows rose in anger. Watch your words! Chu Haitang was now some sort of hallmaster in a small miscellaneous sect, so when rebuked by a leader of a big shot organization like Kangshang Mountain, she subconsciously backed up a step. But the old palace master said, Peak Lord Qi, there's no need for anger. Why not let this lady continue? We cannot silence people's mouths. Chu Haitang looked at him and clenched her teeth, the hatred in her eyes overcoming the fear, and her voice once again grew loud. When he was 12 years old, he was but a slave my family purchased from traveling child traffickers. As the 9th, he was called Xiaoju. My parents saw that the traffickers had abused him and thought him pitiful, so they brought him home, taught him how to read and paid for his food and clothing, kept him warm, fed, and free of worries. My brother looked after him and they were close. When he became 15 and our parents passed, my older brother became the head of the house and freed him from his contract, even recognized him as a foster brother. And I, because I had grown up with him, was deceived by him. I really thought we truly loved each other, so we were betrothed. Shen Qingqiu stood there, forced to listen, along with thousands of people, to his own dark history. The thousands of thoughts in his mind all transformed into tearful silence. Tears began to well up and overflow in Chu Haitang's eyes. The year my brother was 19, a wandering cultivator came to the city. He saw the place had nourishing spiritual qi, so he established an altar at the city gates. Any young boy or girl under the age of 18 could go for a spiritual evaluation. He wanted to select someone with exceptional talent and take them as a disciple. The cultivator knew immortal techniques, so everyone in the city admired him, and Shenju also went to the evaluation altar. His aptitude was good, and the cultivator settled on him, so he joyfully came running back, wanting to leave my family. Of course, my brother did not agree. In his eyes, cultivating to immortality was a pipe dream, and he and I were already betrothed, so how could he abandon his family all of a sudden? He and my brother had a big argument and was cheerless afterwards. We thought he was only temporarily depressed, that after he thought it through, acceptance would come naturally. Who could have known that very night he finally revealed his ugly nature? He lost his mind, killed my brother and many of our servants, leaving bodies scattered all through the estate, then disappeared from the city with that cultivator the same night. With this, my household changed drastically. As a lone, weak woman, I was powerless to support it, and the estate fell apart like that. I searched and searched for this nemesis of mine for many years, but never found any leads. The cultivator who'd taken him as a disciple had been killed many years ago, and the trail led to more of a dead end. If I'd not come to Jinlan City today, I fear I would have spent my entire life not knowing that this vile ingrate who killed his benefactors with his own hands had actually managed to climb all the way up to the position of Peak Lord, #1 under the heavens, though there is a huge difference from before. But this face, I could not mistake this face even if it burned to ash. I am not afraid to speak the name of the cultivator who incited him to murder either. It was the murderer of countless people who has been on the wanted list for years, Wu Yanzi. How is this story not have the biggest plot holes in it? Not because it's not true, but because how can you not see, oh wait, he was a slave, he wanted to leave, he was told no and he killed everybody. Obviously, he was not in a good, no, he was not a beloved friend of these people being treated well. He was still a slave and he was in prison, so he escaped. How does anybody, I know this whole scene is about how foolish crowds can be and how, how obvious they are, oblivious they are, but God, how can you not listen to that story and go, I wonder if she's misled or confused or doesn't know what the fuck she's talking about. Wu Yanzi was notorious, with countless crimes to his name. When it suddenly burst forth that one of the 12 Peak Lords was his disciple, everyone was terrified. But amid the sea of sighs and gasps, Shen Qingqiu actually grew calm instead. Deep down, he was actually a little doubtful. The experiences Chu Haitang had relayed sounded full of ups and downs, but they weren't free of holes. Shen Qingqiu wasn't discriminating against the original goods, but the original work had always tried its hardest to show that Shen Qingqiu's personality was unlikable, pig-headed, petty, tactless, uncharismatic, aloof, and a poser. With this kind of character, it was hard to believe a young Shen Qingqiu was endearing enough to make people completely unrelated by blood to treat him as family. But everyone else was unable to catch on to these sorts of details. Originally, Shen Qingqiu had been afraid of this plotline, but not very afraid. There wasn't any definite evidence for this old state of affairs, only Chu Haitang's testimony, so as long as he doubled down and refused to confess, he could make Chu Haitang think she had the wrong person. It would be no more than an indistinct smear on Shen Qingqiu's character's background. There was nothing he could do. Shen Qingqiu truly had done Chu Haitang wrong, but that was the original goods. He didn't want to carry this blame. He'd rather compensate her properly at a different time and place. He hadn't killed Liu Qingge, he hadn't molested Ning Yingying, he'd done nothing to warrant such a fall from grace. 100-floor skyscraper toppling in a single night, down to where everyone would chase and beat him. But everything was different now. The problem was, all the indistinct smears on his reputation had amassed together, First the sower accusing him, then the old palace master guiding the case, now Chu Haitang appearing to denounce him. All of this together could serve as proof of his dishonorable character. A scummy man who threw away his lover, a traitor colluding with the demon race, a disciple of a wanted fugitive? What an excellent example of making something already perfect even more so, adding flowers to the brocade.
Nope, you're back.
As things that are coincidentally and perfectly aligned accumulate, people no longer take them as coincidental. Not to mention that, how can you not be suspicious when so many people all at once just show up to say, hey, fuck that guy? How is her appearance suddenly here not immediately I know, these people are stupid, but anyway. The old palace master said, Sect leader Yue, there must not be favoritism when dealing with these kinds of matters. Otherwise, if word gets out that a magnificent sect like Kangchong Mountain harbored such an unsavory character, how will you explain yourselves to the masters? Yu Qingyuan showed no reaction. So the palace master is saying, as I see it, let us make temporary arrangements for Immortal Master Shen in Huanhua Palace, and a decision can be made after the truth is thoroughly investigated. How about it? Everyone knew what the arrangements meant. Beneath the foundations of Huanhua Palace's temporary residence was a water prison. The terrain was complicated and accompanied by Huanhua Palace's maze array. The secret array of theirs was not an entirely different level from the ones used to keep non-cultivators away from the palace. The inside of the water prison was even more heavily guarded, with a complete set of torture chambers and equipment incomparably professional. Without exception, every single person imprisoned within was a cultivator guilty of terrible crimes. Huh? I can't tell if somebody just shouted my name or something. I'm gonna double check just real quick. Just a second. You entertain them. Did somebody call? Sorry.
Excuse me, Gandhi. Oi.
Not me. There's too many people in this house with the name A. Alright. To put it simply, Huanhua Palace's water prison was the public prison of the cultivation world. In addition, whenever there was some cultivator under suspicion of endangering the human realm, who needed to be held in custody while awaiting trial, they would be sent there to await a joint public trial by the four major sects, before being given their final sentence. Liu Qingge sneered and said enough. He'd patiently listened to this nonsense for so long, his heart had been seething with anger. He grabbed Chen Yuan from where it was on his back, his stance poised for a fight. Across from them, Huanhua Palace's disciples also drew their swords, one from another, glowering back. Yu Qingyuan said, Liu Shidi, stand down. Though Liu Qingge was unwilling, if he absolutely had to obey someone, he would only concede to Yu Qingyuan. He forced his hand away from the hilt of his sword. Seeing him step back, Yu Qingyuan nodded and said, these sorts of accusations cannot be made so lightly. The all-black longsword at his waist suddenly sprang an inch from its sheath to reveal a piercing snow-white blade. In an instant, it was like an invisible net had been cast over the entire plaza, the spiritual energy within roiling and relentlessly like the tides. The incessant hum from the sword sounded like it was droning within the ear itself. A number of the younger disciples instinctively covered their ears, their hearts pounding relentlessly. Xuan Su! Everyone was floored. The reason Yu Qingyuan had ordered Liu Qingge to step down was so he could step up to fight himself? Unbelievable. Reportedly, ever since Kangchong Mountain's Chongding Peak Lord Yu Qingyuan had succeeded his position, he'd only drawn his sword twice. Once during the succession ceremony, and once when he battled the descendant from the heavenly demon bloodline, Luo Binghei's dad. Xuan Su had only been drawn an inch, but everyone suddenly understood why. To be able to sit at the top of Chongding Hall, a mild and calm temperament was definitely not enough. The old palace master called, formations! Was this the cadence of an immediate battle? The demons haven't even fought their way over, and the humans have already started fighting amongst themselves. Seeing the situation worsen, Shen Qingchu hurriedly removed his sword and threw it before him. Shu Ya struck straight up in the ground before the Huanhua Palace Master. Giving up one's sword was equivalent to surrender, to comply with the verdict. The old Palace Master immediately took the sword he'd turned over, waving his sect members back into place. Yu Qingwang called quietly, "Shidi?" Shen Qingchu said, "Shishong, no need to say any more. Those clean will remain clean no matter what. Qingchu is willing to accept arrest." With this old palace master scenily clamping down on him and the Sower and Shu Haitang's combo attack, being imprisoned was the last nail in the coffin. The sequence of events had happened in the original work anyway. He'd thought he could avoid it, but he didn't expect things would still circle back to the plot's set sequence of events. Why force Kangshong Mountain and Huanhua Palace to fall out? Shen Qingchu persisted. Saying more helps no one. Things will prove themselves. After he spoke, he didn't look to see what Yu Qingwan's expression was like, but he swept a glance at Luo Binghe. He could see neither joy nor anger on his face. Luo Binghe stood steadily in place, forming a clear contrast with the cultivators swaying and covering their ears around him. After some time, Yu Qingwan finally resheathed his sword. It was like a giant net was drawn away from the air. Shen Qingchu turned towards Yu Qingwan and gave him a deep bow. Thinking about it, he'd made a lot of trouble for this Shishong. He was truly ashamed. Hello, Phoenix. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. Shu Haitang was still sobbing incessantly. Qin Wanyu walked over to her and comforted her by saying, "Miss Chu, no matter the state of affairs, the three sects will give you an answer." She said three sects, excluding Kangshong Mountain, making her position clear. Shu Haitang was moved, tears in her eyes. She looked up to thank her, and upon seeing Luo Binghe standing alone to the side, a blush couldn't help but suffuse her cheeks. Shen Qingchu internally rolled his eyes. Thinking about it, he was getting NTR'd right before his face, so why did he not feel even the slightest bit unhappy? A group of Huanhua Palace disciples, led by Gong Yi Zhao, walked up to him. The things in their hands were very familiar. "Hello, immortal binding cables." "Goodbye, immortal binding cables." "Waves bye-bye." Gong Yi Zhao said apologetically, "Senior Shen, my apologies. This junior will treat you with due respect. When the truth comes to light, I will not let you suffer any slight." Shen Qingchu nodded and only spoke a couple of words in reply. "Thank you for the trouble. What use is it if you're the only one treating me with due respect?" Looking at those Huanhua Palace disciples' expressions, every single one was itching to eat him alive. After all, Huanhua Palace was the sect that had suffered the most serious casualties at the Immortal Alliance conference. There was suffering to be had. With his torso bound by immortal cables, Shen Qingchu felt his body grow heavy. Before, when without a cure flared up intermittently, he would only feel his spiritual connection become sluggish. Like the connection was bad, but if you smacked the remote, you could make do. Once the immortal binding cables were on, his spiritual energy was completely obstructed and diminished him to an ordinary mortal. The old palace master said, "We shall set the date of the trial to 1 month from now. What does everyone think?" Liu Qingge said 5 days. The longer he was imprisoned in the water prison, the more miscellaneous suffering he'd have to bear. The 5 days Liu Qingge had stated was the furthest the preparation procedures for the trial could be compressed. The old palace master was of course unwilling to compromise. "If it is so hurried, I am afraid there will be many oversights." Xiaohua Temple were professional mediators. One of their abbots suggested, "What about 10 days? Yu Qingwan said, 7 days, no longer. With all the sect leaders haggling, Shen Qingchu suddenly felt like he was standing in a food market. He had his own considerations and hurriedly cut in. "No need to say any more. Listen to the old palace master's plans. 1 month. If he could delay things more, it was better for the growth of the mushrooms." He shot a look at Shang Qinghua out of the corner of his eye and raised his eyebrow. Understanding his intentions, Shang Qinghua let his hands and fell in front of him, subtly making a "no problem, leave it to me" gesture. However, all this really depended on if he could last a month in a Huanhua palace, completely under Luo Binghe's control. Dun dun dun! Chapter 37. The Labyrinthine Water Prison. "Please wear this, Senior Shen." As soon as Shen Qingchu lowered his head, a strip of black cloth covered his eyes. In truth, the action was completely superfluous. With Huanhua Palace's maze array, hundreds of twists and secrets, Even if Shen Qingchu held a video camera for the entire trip and recorded everything, he still wouldn't remember how to enter and leave. The air in the water prison was damp, the ground slightly slippery. With his eyes blindfolded, his only choice was to let the escorting disciples lead him. Shen Qingchu said, "Gong Yi Zhao." Gong Yi Zhao had been following closely behind him from the beginning and answered quickly, "Senior?" Shen Qingchu said, "While waiting for the joint trial by the four sects, am I allowed any contact with outsiders?" Gong Yi Zhao said, "Only those with Huanhua Palace's authorization pass can have free passage inside the water prison. Therefore, it would be a bit difficult for Shang Qinghua to visit to discuss using the mushrooms." Shen Qingchu thought for a while, then asked, "How were the sowers dealt with?" Gong Yi Zhao faithfully answered everything. After they were burned, the masters from Xiaohua Temple took them back to perform rites for their souls. From the side came a disgruntled voice. "Shishong, why are you telling him so much? Now that you've entered the water prison, could it be you still want to leave?" Such a familiar voice. It was once again that pockface who seemed to have a grudge against him. Gong Yi Zhao scolded, "Don't be rude." Shen Qingchu smiled and said, "Currently my identity is that of a prisoner's. There's no need to scold him. Let him do as he wishes." As he was speaking, they'd arrived in the place where he was to be held in temporary custody. After the black cloth was undone, his vision became slightly brighter, and he saw they were standing in a giant stone cave. Below them was a dark, murky lake, while dim yellow torches were scattered unevenly on the walls around them. The flames were reflected in the water, where they danced wildly with the ripples. From the center of the lake jutted a white man-made stone platform. Sparkling and translucent, its color was almost like jades. It must have been made out of a special material. Gong Yi Zhao took out a ring of keys before feeling about an area of rock. After performing an operation, from the lake bed came the sound of gears turning, and up rose a stone path that led directly to the platform at the heart of the lake. Gong Yi Zhao said, "Senior, please." The pock-faced disciple picked up an ordinary stone and said, "Watch!" He threw the stone into the lake water, and the stone actually floated without sinking. After a moment, there came a sizzling noise, like it'd become meat grilling on a griddle, the surface crawling with bubbles. Then it quickly corroded and dissolved, vanishing completely. The pockface said gleefully, "This particular water prison doesn't get used often. Wanting to escape from here or break someone out from within are all pipe dreams and illusions." Shen Qingchu was astonished by the ferocity of this liquid. Akatsuki had the same thought I did about the water prison term. Actually, I think this place might be more pleasant than that water prison. Let's see here. Wasn't Huanhua Palace a famous righteous sect? From where did they get so much of this ferocious, obviously illegal liquid? If someone took a tumble in this lake, likely not even shards would remain of their bones. As Shen Qingchu walked along the stone path, he was especially careful. In the case he slipped, it wouldn't be fun at all. Once he arrived at the platform at the lake's center, Gong Yi Zhao turned the key again, and the path leading to the center sank back to the lake bed. Shen Qingchu sat down on the stone platform and observed all around him, secretly trying to determine if a sword could render all this corrosive lake water pointless. He just had this thought when Gong Yi Zhao pulled on a mechanism next to the keyhole. Next, from above him came the gurgling sound of flowing water. Shen Qingchu raised his head in time to see dark, murky water descend all around him, forming an airtight water curtain, hemming him in on the 60-square-foot stone platform. I was wrong. Forget about people. Even a fly wouldn't be able to leave. Huanhua Palace's water prison reputation was well justified. No wonder all the sects had unanimously elected it to serve as the public prison. Shen Qingchu knew someone would definitely come looking for trouble, but he hadn't expected it to be this fast. A basin of cold water splashing on him woke him up. Freezing, Shen Qingchu jolted, and at first thought he'd dozed off and fallen into the lake. He shook his head and blinked with great effort. The sensation of icy lake water in his eyes was extremely uncomfortable, and only with this was he certain it was ordinary water. The 118 immortal binding cables twined around his body were incredibly thin, but they firmly shackled his meridians, binding him tightly until even his blood flow was restricted. So his cold resistance had greatly decreased. He couldn't help but shiver a little. The water curtain around him had stemmed. Even the adjustable path connecting the stone platform to the outside was raised. His vision gradually cleared. Turning upward, he first saw a pair of dainty, exquisitely embroidered shoes. Then looking up further, the pink hem of a skirt. he saw a maiden dressed entirely in pink, bedecked with jewels, with shapely brows and almond-shaped eyes, and a metal whip over her shoulder, staring at him. Shen Qingqiu internally rolled his eyes. Luo Binghe was really too good at tormenting people. These wives of his were really unbearable, like flower viewing on horseback, appearing one after another and each giving more trouble than the last. Don't appear anymore. He's not the original goods. He has no interest in molesting beauties, okay? The maiden pointed at him with her whip. If you're awake, don't play dead. This palace mistress has things to ask you. With her seniority and her ability, no matter how wretched Shen Qingqiu might be right now, she would never have the chance to interrogate him. Shen Qingqiu said, "This doesn't seem like something little palace mistress should do." This pearl on the old palace master's palm and apple of his eye, the unruly head of Luo Binghe's harem, said without any courtesy, "Enough with the blather. Since you know who I am, you must know the goal for my coming." The rims of her eyes reddened, and she said through clenched teeth, "You demon realm colluder! You vile, despicable traitor to your own comrades! The heavens have eyes! Now that you've fallen into this palace mistress's hands, I will make you pay!" Shen Qingqiu said, "I don't remember admitting to colluding with the demon realm." The little palace mistress stamped her feet and said, "You think that just because you haven't admitted to it, I can't teach you a lesson? You're a long-famous senior, yet you could still be so cruel, so ruthless to Luo Gege. So naturally you can do things like colluding with the demon race as well." Genetic inheritance is truly powerful. With this logic, you definitely are the old palace master's blood child. Shen Qingqiu was silent for a while, then said, "Did he really say I was cruel and ruthless to him?" The little palace mistress's delivery was beautiful and passionate. "Luo Gege is such a good person, so of course he wouldn't say it. The wounds he's suffered are all hidden within his heart, where no one can touch them, where no one can see them. But do you think that just because he doesn't say, I wouldn't be able to tell? Have I not eyes or a heart?" These heartfelt feelings. Shen Qingqiu's entire body felt like it was about to burst. Is this a motherfucking poetry recitation contest? He really didn't know whether to pound the ground in hysterical laughter or start crying hot tears. I'm sorry, I know laughing at a girl who's sincerely expressing her deep love is extremely rude, but this is too embarrassing. It's practically embarrassment play. Though Luo Binghe's harem was vast, it was truly a chaotic mess with all sorts of types. This was called biting off more than you can chew. Quantity over quality. It was also the result of airplanes shooting towards the sky, insisting on writing a stallion novel, despite being a shitty otaku who'd barely touched a woman's hand. Serves you right! The little palace mistress suddenly said suspiciously, "What kind of expression is that?" Shen Qingqiu promptly pulled himself together, checking to see if his face had been stretched into a grin. Offending this brat wouldn't have any good results. As expected, the little palace mistress flew into a rage. "Were you laughing at me just now?" The little palace mistress had originally been in love with her childhood sweetheart, Gong Yizhao, but after Luo Binghe appeared, all her passionate love surged towards the male lead. Nothing to be done. Since ancient times, in a war between the fated love and the childhood friend, the fated love's victory would never be in doubt. This kind of setting, where the target of affection changed, was actually very common in stallion novels, because there were many NTR fans around the world. No matter if it was NTRing others or being NTR'd themselves, they could derive a strange pleasure from this type of plot. The person who changed targets of affection would of course believe they were pursuing their true love and hadn't done anything wrong, but eventually guilt would weigh on their conscience. When they saw someone's expression being off, they would feel like the person was laughing at them. The little palace mistress's shame became anger. She swung her arm and the whip cracked forth. The whip's momentum was intense. Its crack shrill beyond compare. Shen Qingqiu's spiritual circulation was obstructed by the immortal binding cables, but his agility had yet to deteriorate. He rolled along the floor, and the whip just happened to smash down less than 3 feet from his foot. The smash sent rock shards and pulverized dust flying from the stone platform. In a half-kneel, Shen Qingqiu steadied himself. Holy shit! Why does a young maiden use this kind of barbed iron whip? It doesn't fit your image. What fit even less was, in the original work, wasn't the little palace mistress's refined iron whip used for hitting love rivals? A tool for fighting over men and tearing... It was only ever used to hit pretty women Luo Binghe stared at for too long. Why is it being used to hit a man? I wonder. He's so close and yet so far. I've had enough. Can you stop giving me this kind of script? Having missed, the little palace mistress's rage grew, and with a sweet-sounding cry, pulled her whip back and retook her stance. The stone platform was only so large, and Shen Qingchu was tied up, so no matter how fast his reflexes were, the whip's wind inevitably grazed him, ripping his clothes in several places, though it had yet to hurt him. But after continuous dodging, he had quickly backed up to the edge of the stone platform. He looked and saw nowhere to retreat, meaning he could only take directly a lash. Shen Qingchu clenched his teeth and braced himself, shutting his eyes and waiting for the pain to strike. But even after waiting for some time, a long time, he didn't feel any physical pain. He quickly opened his eyes, and his heart immediately sank. Luo Binghe was gripping the whip's lash in his bare hand, while two masses of ghostly, pitch-black fire seemed to burn within his eyes, cold and terrifying. He enunciated each word, his voice freezing them down to the core. "What are you doing?" The little palace mistress didn't know when he'd appeared and started in fright, but what truly frightened her was the cold, severe expression she'd never seen before, and she couldn't help but shiver. Ever since they'd become acquainted, Luo Binghe had always been incredibly gentle, good at coaxing and lifting moods. Never had he used this kind of murderous gaze on her. The little palace mistress couldn't help but back up several steps, stammering. I asked Daddy for the authorization pass to interrogate him a bit," Luo Binghe coldly said. "The joint trial by the four sects is in a month." The little palace mistress suddenly felt aggrieved. She shouted, "He's hurt so many of my Shishongs and Shijis, so many! And he was terrible to you! What's wrong with me teaching him a lesson?" Luo Binghe completely yanked her whip over, treating the sharp barbs like they were nothing. He didn't appear to use much strength, but when he relaxed his fingers, the refined iron whip's segments had become a pile of metal scrap. Luo Binghe indifferently said, "Go back." Having watched something beloved of hers reduced to a pile of tiny fragments, the little palace mistress let out an "ah" in complete disbelief. Sobbing, she pointed at Shen Qingchu, then at Luo Binghe. You're going to treat me this way? I'm angry for your sake, yet you won't let me touch him?" Luo Binghe gave no answer and threw the iron whip's destroyed fragments into the lake, the hissing sounds as they corroded filling their ears incessantly. Seeing this, the little palace mistress's lips trembled. In that instant, she suddenly felt that what Luo Binghe wanted to crush inch by inch and then throw into the corrosive lake was her, and it wasn't a joke at all. Filled with sorrow and indignation, little palace mistress yelled, "Even though I was doing it for you?" After yelling, she turned and fled in tears. Shen Qingchu roared internally, "This script is wrong. The fuck? Motherfucker, something's gone wrong!" He hadn't finished roaring when Luo Binghe's gaze shifted to him. Oh my lord. How does he not know? I feel like this is the very first scene where even for the audience it should be incredibly clear what's Luo Binghe. To this point you could be like, okay, maybe Luo Binghe is angry, maybe he is targeting him, maybe he's the reason this is happening, but at this moment, he intercedes and is so angry that someone would dare try to hurt his Shizun. How do you not see that he still cares? He's angry, but he cares. Shen Qingchu felt like his teeth, stomach, and balls were all aching from stress. At this kind of time, he'd rather the little palace mistress give him 180 lashes of the whip. At most, it'd be a surface injury kind of ache. Still better than being with Luo Binghe in an enclosed area and aching everywhere. The two of them looked at each other in silence for a long time, then Luo Binghe took a step towards him. Just realized that he just said being in a room with Luo Binghe made his balls ache. And he still doesn't get it! He doesn't get his balls ache. Oh my gosh! I'm sorry, that's just really funny. The two of them looked at each other in silence for a long time. Then Luo Binghe took a step towards him. Shen Qingchu subconsciously maintained a distance between them, his manner aloof. Luo Binghe's outstretched hand froze in midair for a while, then he withdrew it. He humphed and said, "There's no need for Shizun to be so wary. If I wished to do something to you, I wouldn't need to touch you at all. A big truth. Even a single drop of heavenly demon blood inside the stomach was like a time bomb planted within the body, with unlimited possibilities. As long as Luo Binghe wanted to, a crook of his finger could puncture his intestines and destroy his stomach, cause him enough pain to wish for death. Shen Qingchu sat back down in a meditative pose and lifted his eyes to meet Luo Binghe's gaze. 1 month. No matter what he had to hold on for 1 month. Afterwards, he'd be free as a bird, soaring, and whatever with all this crap. Who gives a shit? The two of them were silent for a moment, then Shen Qingchu deliberated and said, If you do wish to do something to me, there's no need to rush. If you wait until after the joint trial by the four sects, my reputation will be ruined with no chance to turn things around. If you wait to settle all debts then, wouldn't you have good reason, and it'd be greatly satisfying. He'd spoken these words based on the original Luo Binghe's way of thinking. Logically, they should have been an excellent match for Luo Binghe's tastes. But unexpectedly, not only did Luo Binghe's expression fail to clear, it became even more bitingly cold. He narrowed his eyes. Why is Shizun so certain the joint trial will find you guilty? Shen Qingchu said, This question should be for you, shouldn't it? Luo Binghe repeated, For me. He gave a cold laugh. Again, me. Shen Qingchu was left speechless. So, it's clear here, he in his mind, Shizun sees him as a demon that must obviously be behaving evilly all the time. Not realizing Shen Qingchu is seeing a different version of him in his head who did act evil a lot of the time. He's not wrong to be afraid of these things. But from Binghe's point of view, it looks like being discriminatory. And yet he's also confused because Shizun still protects him and is still good to him, and, you know, it's very obvious why he's so upset and so conflicted. But Shen Qingchu just clearly has not realized yet he's dealing with a different person. But it's very fun to watch the two of them stumble all over each other. It's like big dumb idiots who feel aches in the balls. I'm still laughing about that. But that's going to be where we quit for now. My voice is a little hoarse. We will continue to do longer readings, hour and a half-ish, on Monday, Wednesday, Fridays. Fanfic Friday should be back next week. I'll say next week, but maybe this week if I get lucky. And we're also going to start something new that's going to alternate Fridays. Once a month we'll have Fanfic Friday, and then we're also going to start doing readings of gay works, but like historical, kind of like one episode will be a discussion of a historical thing to kind of discover a gay canon of literature and introduce folks to things. I thought Shen Yuan is supposed to be smart and savvy. How come he hasn't realized he's got the wife halo? Yeah, I feel like he's got a really big blind spot on himself there. He does not see himself and Binghe as the people they are. He's kind of overlaying the characters from the book and thinking, well, this is how Binghe treats Qingchu, but it's not how he treats you. You know, it's very fun to watch those two idiots fumble, but anyway. Tomorrow will be game, probably, I don't know, Persona, Fear, one of those two. Yeah, that'll be fun. And books, working on them, finished the new version of Silent Hill 1, should have Volume 2 available eventually. I'll do a whole, like, video on that, because that's a big thing, but they should now be far more affordable and better. Well, I'll show y'all when, I have the proofs that, what they're gonna look like. I think that's all the news for today. I'll post an actual official schedule, but I think we're gonna have streaming Sunday through Friday, movie nights Wednesday, game nights Friday, alternating game, yeah, kinda. And that'll give me some time to work on projects and other things. Thanks for watching, and Gandalf, you need to stop moving. You keep moving out of range of the camera. Why do you do this? Why? Why you do this? Say hello. Say hello, I am Gandalf. Anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks to all of our members like Delvin and Jeff and other folks who were here today. If you like what I do and you want to support it, consider becoming a member. You can do so for as little as 99 cents a month. I will be adding some things and streamlining some things. Still working on all that, but I'll let y'all know when I have it. Thanks again, and I'll see y'all next time. Bye.